So at the end of all this, I realized one thing, this thing that sort of I thought was not really a big deal was. And maybe I should just try it and see what happens, So I moved out here, and I moved to Palo Alto with my startup. And I was like waiting for something interesting to happen. I didn't know what would you expect would be the first thing that would happen after all this when you finally come to Silicon Valley. Well, 3 days later, I meet this guy and his labradoodles running around in my building. And we didn't actually talk about any of this because, really like the interesting thing is when you first run into someone, it's like, hey, how's it going? Oh, good, how are you? And here are these dogs running around. And do you really even have an ability to explain any of this whole stuff about, so literally, like, but that was interesting. So the point was, I felt for this one time that it was like something could really happen. Like, this is my 3rd day here. And a week later, I met the Palo Alto Police Department. So I heard a car accident outside the building, and it was like 2 in the morning, and I figured I should go see if someone needs some help, right? And I come out of the side of the building, and I have a cop standing there with a gun and a flashlight saying, put your hands up. And I'm thinking he's talking to someone else. So I'm looking around, I'm like, are you talking to me? And he's like, you, put your hands up! And so like, I get basically handcuffed and thrown in the back of the squad car because they were looking for a suspect who had pulled a gun out on a cop and then smashed into a cop car, and that was the accident, and was jumping the fence from my building and ran through, and they were looking for him, and they see me come out, and I don't know. Moms are moms and parents are parents, right? And they're always like, are you living somewhere safe? I'm like, Mom, Palo Alto is like the Beverly Hills. It's like the nicest city you could ever imagine. Yeah. Anyway, so I ended up going out also, and I drove actually over to the Ferrari dealership. And because I didn't really know anything in Palo Alto, so I drive down El Camino and I see this Ferrari Silicon Valley, and I was like, all right, let me just go eye candy and just look around and have some fun. And I'm in there looking at these Ferraris, and the general manager comes over to me and he says, hey, is that your car out there? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, can I go check it out? And so we end up going outside, and he's looking at the Mustang, and he's like, so what's your deal? Like, tell me, what are you doing here? And I just moved here with my startup. He's like, oh yeah, you have a startup? He's like, all the VCs, they come and buy their Ferraris from me. He's like, come on in, let's go in my office, I'll call some up. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, really, come on in. So we go into his office, and he sits there, and he starts calling up these VCs. He's like, I got this guy here with a startup, and da-da-da-da, and and so this woman that he calls up, introduces, says, I think you should talk to this guy. And this guy is Chuck Boggs, who later joined my startup. Oh, and Casey Hill, the guy from Motorola, was the first guy who came on board and said, I want to be a part of this, let's try and figure something out, right? But he was ultimately, because of the things that were going on with Motorola and a lot of other stuff and me moving after that year, he was sort of like my first cheerleader, the guy that was there to back you up and say, I like what you're doing, this can work, we need this kind of stuff. And he today he's working for RIM, by the way, in case you guys are wondering where Casey is. So the interesting thing is that Chuck introduces me to Wilson Sonsini, and Dylan introduced me to Silicon Valley Bank. And that's one of the first things you learn when you come out here, is that it's like a family, it's a community. And we're all here to help each other. And some people aren't. I mean, I don't mean to sound like naive about it, but the reality is that everyone here can talk to one another, and if there's something that can help someone, you'll shoot it their way. And these were probably some of the biggest things that really changed the direction of things that were going on. And along the way, I found 2 great developers. And these are my 2 guys right here, John Hanna and Chris Ash. And there's a guy back there who just took 2 exams and something about, no, you right there with the cap on. The algorithm guy, right? You took the algorithm exams? Yeah, so Chris Ash is the big algorithm guy. And he's all about artificial intelligence and getting all this stuff together from the aggregation standpoint of doing some analysis on this cool stuff that you pull together. And John is the genius guy who is really good at working with our JavaScript libraries and Dojo in particular, and getting our design and stuff really clean and neat. So you got to give credit where it's due, right? So those are my two big guys. And then an advisor. And every startup needs a good advisor. And there's a long series of them for us. But one of the ones that I got from Silicon Valley that I'm really proud of is Dr. Mark Granovetter. And Dr. Granovetter wrote this paper in 1973 called The Strength of Weak Ties. And this is a really big paper that sort of every social network has either read or built a lot of their strategy and technology around. And what he did in his Harvard dissertation was basically show that people get their jobs, their next job if you lose a job, from your weak ties. It's not an introduction or something from your best friends and the people you know really, really well. Those weak ties are the most valuable ties to you. And so understanding how to leverage weak ties, understanding how the stuff that you're aggregating, the social data and information that we want to pull together to make things useful, there's a value to all this data, right? It's beyond just like, I need to deal with information overload, and so show me all my friends and give me all my stuff, and here's all my Twitter feeds. Think of FriendFeed, right? So FriendFeed does a great job of aggregating feeds, but there's more nuanced information about what's going on between your friends and what they're doing, and the information that's sort of going across this social graph that extends beyond just your social network. So the social web component of it. And he was a huge boon to us simply because I think this is a very important part of having successful software and systems. So the best part of all this, and this move to Palo Alto, is that we got back to building great software and actually doing this stuff. And so today, here we are with Deeda, and I'm about to get to this demo. And the lesson to take away from this whole talk up to this point is that, we all face challenges, but you gotta keep on fighting and don't give up. Yeah, and I realized when I was putting this together, I was like, so what do you guys do again? And aggregation and empowerment, I think, are the two key words that I want you guys to just remember when you look at what we're working on. Aggregation in the sense of pulling in your social data and your social web information, and empowerment is key, and you'll be able to see it easier in 2 seconds when I show you this demo as one small quick example of it. But really what I want to get away from and what I think is valuable is that we're taking a lot of stuff right now and we're empowering advertisers and we're empowering a lot of other people with this cool information. They want to study social influence and they want to understand all these things that we're doing with our data across social networks and this aggregate information. But to sell ads better, right? To get more targeted ads and to charge more for an ad. And that's, in a sense, fine, because you need a business model. And Catherine asked, how do you plan to getting through 2009? So if you don't have a business model, even if you're Twitter, even if you're whatever popular site, it's a problem. You have to have some answer to that, right? And at the same time, my take on it is that we need to empower the consumer. We need to empower people over this information. So you make better decisions about, well, maybe I should talk to this person because it's beneficial to my job. And it's very obvious why. Like, there's a way that we can show you that information. There's a way that you're empowered to understand how to interact with something or someone because of this information and because of this understanding of social influence. So the app should work just as hard for you as it does for an advertiser or someone else.